All right. So you're ready to really dive deep into conquering that fear of speaking English.
That's right.
We've got a fantastic article here that's packed with tips and advice.
Yeah.
And we are going to pull out the absolute best stuff so you can finally ditch that fear and find your voice in English.
It's going to be good.
Now, get this. One of the things that this article talks about is actually talking to yourself in English.
Interesting.
It sounds a little crazy, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
But stick with us because the article explains why this is surprisingly effective.
I think a lot of people will be surprised.
I think so too.
You know, when we think about speaking a new language, we often picture these perfect flowing conversations right from the start.
Like we're going to sound like a native speaker right away.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not the
Not
reality.
even close.
Confidence, it comes from practice. And yeah, even making mistakes.
Yeah, and this article really gets that.
Big time.
So the article kicks off with a list of reasons why people are afraid to speak English. And I have to say it's a little too relatable.
Right.
Like they've been eavesdropping on my inner monologue. That fear of saying the wrong thing and having everyone judge you.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's a common fear.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're social creatures and we want to be accepted.
We do.
But the thing is that fear can actually hold us back from improving.
Really?
Think about it. If you're constantly worried about making mistakes, you're less likely to take risks
Right.
and experiment with the language, which is so essential for growth.
So what you're saying is that fear can actually make it harder to learn.
Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
The more we fear making mistakes, the fewer opportunities we give ourselves to practice and improve.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to shift our mindset.
Big time.
This is a big first step.
Huge.
The article talks about accepting mistakes as part of learning.
Right.
And not comparing ourselves to others.
Oh, that's such a hard one.
I know, right?
But so important.
Yeah, I can see how those things would help, but honestly, they're easier said than done.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
It's a process, and it takes a conscious effort,
I think so too.
to reframe our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating is that this idea of embracing imperfection,
Okay.
it actually applies to so many areas of life, not just language learning.
That's true.
Think about learning to play a musical instrument.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to sound like a virtuoso from day one, would you?
I wish.
Right? You'd start with simple scales and stumble through some chords and gradually build your skills through practice
And make a lot of mistakes.
and make those inevitable mistakes.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
It makes it feel a lot less daunting.
I hope so.
So instead of aiming for perfection right away,
yeah.
we should be focusing on just getting started and accepting those stumbles
Exactly.
as part of the process.
It's all part of it.
So it's like giving ourselves permission to mess up.
Yes. And you know what? Our brains are actually wired to learn through trial and error.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is. When we make mistakes, our brains, they create new neural connections,
Really?
strengthening our understanding and helping us avoid those same mistakes in the future.
So mistakes are actually good.
They are.
They're like brain boosts.
Exactly. They're opportunities for growth and for learning.
I like that.
The key is to not let them discourage us, but to see them as valuable feedback that can guide us on our language learning journey.
Okay, I'm feeling a little more optimistic about making mistakes now.
Good.
So we've tackled the mindset shift, but then
What's next?
how do we actually start speaking more?
The million-dollar question.
I know, right?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The article suggests something that might sound a little strange.
Yeah.
Talking to yourself in English.
Wait, am I supposed to narrate my life like I'm a character in a movie?
Not quite a movie narration,
Okay.
but you're on the right track.
So it's more about getting those thoughts flowing in English
Yes.
without the pressure of an audience.
Exactly. And here's why it works.
Okay.
When you speak aloud, even if it's just to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're activating different parts of your brain
Wow.
than when you're just reading or listening.
Okay.
You're engaging your vocal cords, practicing pronunciation, and getting comfortable with forming sentences.
So it's a mini workout
It is.
for my English-speaking muscles.
Exactly.
It's not just some random tip. It's actually backed by science.
There's actual research on this.
I'm starting to see how that could be helpful.
Awesome.
What other solo practice ideas does the article suggest?
It also recommends reading aloud.
Okay.
Choose anything that interests you. A book, an article, even song lyrics.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, this helps with pronunciation, intonation, and getting a feel for the rhythm of the language.
So it's like I'm training my ear for the music of English.
Exactly.
And then there's recording yourself, which makes me a little nervous.
I get that.
but I see the value in it.
It can be intimidating, but it's so valuable. Because when you listen back to a recording of yourself speaking, you become more aware of areas that you might need to focus on.
Right?
Maybe you realize you need to work on your pronunciation of certain sounds, or maybe you notice you tend to speak too quickly. It's a fantastic way to pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses so you can target your practice more effectively.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of mindset.
Right.
We've explored some solo practice techniques that can help us build confidence, but I think most of us are aiming to eventually talk to other human beings in English.
That's the goal.
Right. How do we make that leap without freaking out?
Well, that's where finding a safe and supportive environment to practice is so crucial.
Okay.
The article suggests language exchange platforms and English clubs.
I've heard of those,
Have you?
but I've always been a little intimidated by them.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
The idea of talking to a stranger in English just feels terrifying.
I totally understand.
I do.
It's natural to feel nervous.
Yeah.
But these platforms and clubs are designed to be welcoming spaces
Oh,
for learners at all levels.
that's good.
Platforms like Tandem and HelloTalk, they connect you with people from all over the world who are also learning English
Oh, cool.
or who want to learn your native language.
So it's like a language buddy system.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's a win-win.
I like that.
And English clubs offer a great opportunity to practice your speaking skills
Okay.
in a more social setting.
Mm-hmm.
You'll meet other people who share your goals.
Okay.
And you can participate in activities and discussions designed to improve your fluency.
It feels less intimidating than just striking up a conversation with a random native speaker.
It does. And
Yeah.
these environments,
Yeah.
they're specifically designed for language learning and practice.
Okay.
So everyone's there to support each other.
That sounds a lot less scary.
I'm
I
glad.
might just have to give those a try.
Awesome.
Speaking of trying new things, the article also mentions some specific exercises to build confidence.
Okay.
I'm curious about those.
Yeah, they're designed to target different aspects of speaking, like pronunciation, fluency, and even vocabulary.
Okay.
One technique that's particularly effective is called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
I've heard the term, but I'm not really sure what it means.
Okay. Fill me in. It's actually pretty straightforward. You find an audio or video clip in English, could be a podcast,
Like this one?
like this one, a YouTube video, anything you enjoy.
Okay.
And you basically try to shadow the speaker,
Okay.
mimicking their pronunciation and intonation as closely as possible.
So it's not just repeating the words, it's like capturing their whole delivery style.
That's a great way to put it.
So how do I do that?
Well-
do I just pick any random clip and go for it?
It's best to start with something that you find engaging
Okay.
and at your level.
Makes sense.
Don't jump into a super fast-paced news report if you're just starting out.
Good point.
Maybe try a short clip from a show you like or a podcast on a topic that you're familiar with.
And then listen to it a few times without shadowing just to get the gist of what they're saying and how the speaker sounds.
So it's like prepping my ears
Yeah.
for the main event.
Exactly.
Right.
Then you start shadowing phrase by phrase,
Okay.
trying to match the speaker's pace and intonation
Mm-hmm.
as closely as possible.
Mm.
And don't worry if you stumble at first
Okay.
or if you don't sound exactly like the speaker.
Yeah.
The goal is to get comfortable with the sounds
Mm-hmm.
and the rhythm of English
Yeah.
and to train your mouth to make those sounds more naturally.
This sounds kind of fun,
It is fun.
like a vocal workout.
It is.
What about that 3-minute speech challenge?
Oh, yeah.
I'm still not quite sure I get that one.
Okay.
It seems a little counterintuitive
I
to talk to myself to get better at speaking to other people.
I know it sounds a bit strange, right?
It is.
But the 3-minute speech challenge is about building fluency and getting comfortable with expressing your thoughts in English without overthinking it.
Okay.
It's about pushing past that inner critic
All right.
that makes you hesitate and second guess yourself.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Yeah. How does it work?
You pick a topic that interests you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything from your favorite hobby to what you had for breakfast.
Okay.
The point is to keep talking for the full 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Even if you make mistakes, even if you feel like you're repeating yourself,
Okay.
the key is to keep those words flowing.
So it's more about getting used to the act of speaking
It is.
than trying to say something profound.
Exactly. And as you do this more often,
Yeah.
you'll find that you can speak more naturally and spontaneously
Cool.
without having to translate everything in your head first.
That would be nice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about training your brain to think in English, which is a huge step towards fluency.
Okay. I'm starting to see the logic behind it.
Good.
It's like a mental warm-up
It is a mental warm-up.
for real conversation.
Exactly. It gets those gears turning and builds your confidence.
And I could even use this to practice vocabulary and grammar
You can.
that I've been learning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
It's like turning your study time into actual speaking practice.
I like it.
We've got shadowing, we've got speeches. What other exercises?
What else is there?
One that a lot of learners find helpful is role-playing.
Role-playing.
You've ever tried that?
I've heard of it,
You have?
but never actually done it.
It sounds kind of like acting class.
It does a little bit.
You basically imagine yourself in different real-life situations
Okay.
where you'd need to use English.
Okay.
Like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or maybe even having a job interview.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Because it's like a dress rehearsal.
It
A
is.
real-world conversation.
Exactly. And it allows you to practice specific vocabulary and phrases
These-
that you might need in those situations.
Yeah.
Plus, it can help you feel more prepared and confident.
Right. When you actually encounter those scenarios,
Okay, I like that.
how do you actually go about role-playing?
Do I need to get a costume and hire a director?
No costumes, no directors required.
Okay, good.
It could be as simple as writing down a few key phrases for different situations
Okay.
and practicing saying them out loud.
So if I'm practicing ordering food,
Yeah,
I might write down, can I see a menu? Or I would like to order the...
exactly. And then you practice saying those phrases in different ways with different tones of voice to get comfortable with how they sound.
I like that. And what about practicing with a friend or a language partner?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic way to make it more interactive and fun.
Okay.
You can take turns playing different roles
Oh.
and give each other feedback.
Okay, role-playing is definitely going on my list of things to try.
Great.
What about those question and answer drills?
Oh, yeah. Those are good.
They sound pretty basic.
It might seem basic,
Yeah.
but they're incredibly valuable for building fluency and confidence in everyday conversations. Think about those common questions you get asked all the time.
Like,
What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do?
I feel like I stumble over those sometimes,
Really?
even though they're so simple.
That's because we often overthink them.
Yeah, probably.
By practicing your answers to these common questions beforehand,
Okay.
you'll feel more relaxed and confident
Right.
when you're actually asked them in a real conversation.
Okay, sense.
So you can write down the questions, come up with a few different ways to answer
Okay.
each one,
Uh-huh.
and practice saying them out loud
Mm-hmm.
until they feel natural.
That's a really good tip. Because then it's like, I have those answers ready to go.
You do.
So I don't freeze up
Right,
when I'm put on the spot.
exactly. And
Okay.
don't be afraid to get creative with your answers.
Oh, fun.
The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become
Right.
with expressing yourself.
I'm adding that to my list. Role-playing question drills.
Buenas. The article also suggests trying a storytelling challenge,
Storytelling.
which is a fun and engaging way to practice a whole bunch of skills at once.
Okay, I'm listening. How does that work?
You choose a simple story.
Okay.
It could be something that happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
a story you read,
Okay.
or even a fairy tale you remember from childhood.
Got it.
The key is to try to tell the story in English,
Okay.
focusing on things like sequencing your thoughts,
Right.
using descriptive language,
Okay.
and conveying emotions through your voice.
So it's about putting all those grammar and vocabulary skills to use,
Yes.
but in a more creative way.
Exactly. And storytelling is such a natural way to practice speaking
Yeah.
because it involves a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
It gives you a framework to work with.
I see how that would be helpful.
Good.
Because then it's less about memorizing phrases
It is.
and more about actually communicating a message.
Exactly. And don't worry about making it perfect. Just focus on getting your message across and having fun with it.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that one.
Awesome.
So we've covered a lot of different exercises.
They have.
Shadowing 3-minute speeches,
Yes.
role-playing,
Uh-huh.
question drills, and storytelling.
A lot of good stuff.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
I'm feeling inspired, but also a little overwhelmed.
I get.
Where do I even start?
That's a great question.
Is it?
I think the most important thing is to choose one or two exercises that resonate with you
Okay.
and start there.
So it's about finding what works for me
It is.
and not trying to do everything at once.
Exactly. And remember, consistency is key.
Consistency.
Even practicing for a few minutes each day can make a huge difference over time.
That's reassuring because I can definitely commit to a few minutes a day.
Good.
What about making English a part of my daily life, even when I'm not actively practicing these exercises?
That's what we're going to talk about in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome, I can't wait.
We'll look at some creative ways to make English a natural part of your daily routine.
Okay, sounds good. I'm excited about that.
So stay tuned.
I will. So we left off talking about ways to make English a part of everyday life.
We
Right?
did.
Even when we're not actively sitting down to study or practice.
Right, like sneaking it in.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some ways that we can do that?
Well, think about the things you already do on a daily basis.
Okay.
Watching TV, listening to music, browsing social media, all those can become chances to engage with English.
So instead of passively consuming this content,
Yeah,
I can make a conscious effort to do it in English.
exactly. Like, for example, you mentioned watching TV shows.
Yeah.
Could you try switching to English audio with subtitles?
Okay.
Or maybe start with English subtitles on shows you already watch in your native language.
You know, I actually already do that sometimes,
You do.
but I find that I get distracted by the subtitles
I see.
and I'm not really focusing on what I'm hearing.
Right, right.
Any tips for making the most of that?
That's a common challenge.
Yeah.
One trick is to start with shows you're already familiar with.
Okay.
So if you know the plot and the characters, you'll be able to follow along more easily,
Okay.
even if you don't catch every word.
Right.
And don't be afraid to pause and rewind if you need to.
Good point.
It's not about understanding everything perfectly.
Right.
It's about exposing yourself to the natural rhythm and flow of English speech.
I like that. What about music?
Music.
I love listening to music, but I don't always understand all the lyrics.
Music is such a powerful tool for language learning.
Is it?
It's catchy, it's emotional, and it gets stuck in our heads.
That's true.
So instead of just letting the music kind of wash over,
Yeah.
try paying attention to the lyrics.
Okay.
Look them up online. Sing along. Even try translating them into your native language.
Translating them. Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, I'm really paying attention to the words
Yeah.
and what they mean.
And you'll be surprised how much vocabulary and grammar you can pick up
Just by doing that.
just by doing that.
Okay, I like that. What other everyday activities could I turn into English practice?
Well, think about the technology you use every day.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier feeling a little overwhelmed
I did.
by all the tips we discussed.
Yes.
What about changing the language settings
Oh.
on your phone or your computer to English?
I never thought of that.
Have you?
That's such a good idea.
It is.
Because then it's like I'm constantly surrounded by English.
You are.
Even if I'm just like checking email or, scrolling through social media.
Exactly. It's about making English a natural part of your digital environment.
Yeah.
And here's another challenge for you.
Okay.
Try thinking in English.
Wait, what?
I know it sounds weird.
How do I even do that?
It's a subtle shift,
Okay.
but a powerful one.
So what do I do?
Instead of constantly translating back and forth,
Yeah.
in your head, try to catch yourself thinking in your native language
Okay.
and gently redirect those thoughts into English.
Oh, so it's like I'm training my brain
You are.
to think in English mode.
Exactly. Start small.
Okay.
Maybe narrate your daily routine in your head
Uh-huh.
or describe the things you see around you in English.
Okay.
The more you do it, the more natural it will become.
So it's like rewiring my brain
Yeah,
to think in a whole new language.
Exactly.
Wow. You know, at the beginning of this deep dive, I was pretty intimidated by this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like speaking English confidently.
Mm-hmm. It can feel really daunting.
Yeah, but now I'm starting to see it as a journey,
That's a great way to look at it.
like a process of exploration and discovery, and that feels a lot less scary.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head. Overcoming this fear is as much about changing our mindset as it is about learning specific techniques.
So it's not about being perfect
It's not.
or sounding like a native speaker right away.
No, it's about shifting our focus from perfection to progress.
I like that.
Because everyone who speaks English fluently was once a beginner.
That's true.
They all went through that awkward phase
Yeah.
of fumbling through conversations and making mistakes.
It's part of the process.
It's all part of the process.
That makes me feel like it's actually achievable,
It is.
even if it feels a little daunting right now.
And you know what? Making mistakes is actually a sign that you're learning and that you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Okay, so mistakes are actually good.
They
They're
are.
not a bad thing.
They're valuable feedback
Okay.
that helps us identify areas where we need to improve.
I'm going to reframe my relationship with mistakes.
Good.
I'm going to see them as little stepping stones
I love that.
on my path to fluency.
Yes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final piece of advice that you would give to our listeners?
Okay, here it is. You are capable of more than you think.
I like that.
Don't let fear hold you back from experiencing the joy and the power of speaking English. Take that first step today, whether it's talking to yourself in the mirror, changing your phone settings, or joining a language exchange platform.
Okay.
And remember, we're all in this together. There's a whole community of English learners out there.
There is.
Who are cheering you on.
I love that. That's so encouraging and inspiring. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to start.
So true.
Every conversation, every mistake, every moment of laughter is a step closer to fluency.
Keep going.
So embrace the journey, be kind to yourself, and most importantly, have fun. We are so excited to see you flourish on this amazing adventure of learning English.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into conquering the fear of speaking English.
We are.
We've talked about shifting our mindset and practicing those speaking skills.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
But you also mentioned creating an English-speaking environment.
Right.
Even if we're not living in an English-speaking country.
Exactly.
So how do we actually do that?
Well, it's about finding little opportunities to immerse yourself in the language.
Throughout your day.
So like what?
Think about the things you already do.
Mm-hmm.
Watching TV, listening to music, browsing social media.
Yeah.
All of those can become chances to engage with English.
So instead of just passively watching or listening,
Right.
I can make a conscious effort to do it in English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you mentioned watching TV shows.
Yeah, I love TV shows.
Could you try switching to English audio with subtitles?
Okay.
Or maybe start with English subtitles on shows you already watch in your native language.
Yeah, I actually already do that sometimes.
You do?
But I find that I get distracted by the subtitle.
Oh, yeah, that's common.
Yeah, and then I'm not really focusing on the spoken language.
I see.
Any tips for making the most of that?
One trick is to start with shows you're already familiar with.
Okay.
If you already know the plot and the characters,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to follow along more easily,
Yeah, that makes sense.
even if you don't catch every word.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to pause and rewind if you need to.
Right. It's not about understanding everything perfectly.
Exactly. It's just about getting that exposure
Yeah.
to the natural rhythm and flow of English.
What about music?
Music? Oh, that's a good one.
I love listening to music,
Me too.
but I don't always understand all the lyrics.
That's okay. Music is such a powerful tool for language learning.
Is it really?
It is. It's catchy, it's emotional, and it gets stuck in our heads.
That's true.
So instead of just letting it kind of wash over you,
Right.
try really paying attention to those lyrics.
So like, how would I do that?
Look them up online.
Oh.
Sing along.
Oh.
Even try translating them
Oh.
into your native language.
I never thought about translating lyrics. That's kind of a cool idea.
It is. It makes you really pay attention to the words
Yeah.
and think about what they mean.
Yeah, like what are they actually saying?
And you'd be surprised how much vocabulary and grammar you pick up
Just by doing that.
just by doing that.
Wow, okay. I like that. What other everyday activities can I turn into English practice?
Let's see. What about the technology you use every day?
Okay, like my phone.
Like your phone. Exactly.
Okay.
You mentioned feeling overwhelmed by all those tips we discussed.
It was a lot.
What about changing the language settings on your phone or your computer to English?
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that.
Did you?
That's such a good idea because then it's like I'm constantly surrounded by English.
You are.
Even when I'm just doing, normal everyday things.
Exactly. It's about making English a natural part of your environment.
I like that. Okay, so what else?
Here's another one.
Okay.
Try thinking in English.
Oh, wait, hold on.
What
do you mean thinking in English?
I know it sounds kind of strange,
It does.
but instead of constantly translating back and forth in your head,
Yeah.
try to catch yourself thinking in your native language
Okay.
and gently redirect those thoughts into English.
Oh, so it's like I'm training my brain
You
to
are.
think in English mode.
You got it. Start small,